Are you a Capricorn, Sun, Moon, or Rising? Or maybe you are cross-watching for a Capricorn in your life and you want to know more about their inner world. Well, in today's video, we are going to be exploring the shadow side of Capricorn and how to own these hidden parts. Hey there, Cosmic Warriors, and welcome back to another video. And if you are new here, my name is Hannah. I am a Western Practical Astrologer. Now, before we do dive into today's video, don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button and click the bell. And if you are interested in any of my services, if you're interested in booking a reading with me, then you can do so by going to my website, hannahselsewhere.com. There you can also find my practical astrology ebooks, guide and merch. All the links will be in the description box down below. I do hope that you find this video to be helpful today. Let's do this. Okay, so before we do get into this, I do not claim to be a psychologist. This is simply me going off the knowledge and information I know about astrology. So do take what I'm saying today with a grain of salt. And of course, see what resonates. Also, I just want to give a massive shout out to the author of this book, Howard Sasportas. Howard Sasportas wrote this book, The 12 Houses, and thanks to his knowledge, I have been able to create this series. Also, I suggest watching for your rising sign first and foremost, followed by your sun sign, then your moon sign, just to see how things resonate for you. And then also I'm going to be using the whole sign system for this series. So we're going to be diving into your 7th, 4th, 8th and 12th houses. This is because these are unconscious houses. They are tied to our shadow. And of course, if you do have any planets in these houses, consider them. And just one more thing here, this information is in conjunction with Jungian psychology. And so we will be exploring your shadow side. In short terms, Carl Jung explored symbolism and archetypes, and you could say that the 12 signs are archetypes. So on that note, let's explore your shadow, Capricorn, and how to own it. Capricorn, you greet life with caution, realism, and being rather reserved. You're probably the most reserved out of all the signs. All the earth signs, of course, can be reserved, but you seem to be rather controlled, especially when you meet new people. When you enter new situations, it's as if you must watch others carefully. But this isn't in a suspicious Scorpio way or in this discreet or discerning Virgo way. I think this comes down to substance. Now, you could argue that Taurus does this as well, but you're much more constructive than Taurus. You'll think, is this conversation worth having with this person? Or is this situation essential? Do I have to go there? And if so, what will I get out of the experience? Indeed, this is about you assessing how useful and beneficial situations are. Now, if this is the case, perhaps others mistake you as a user or as a control freak or as a dictator, so to speak, or perhaps you're often seen as overly rigid, like you're stiff, but really, this is about utility. This is about time, energy, effort. See, it's you who is on this life path where you focus on building, achieving, planning, and of course, succeeding. So perhaps for many of you, certain situations aren't worth your time when you consider your purpose, when you consider your life mission. You might think to yourself, how much of my time will this take? How much of my energy will this require of me? And when you weigh out these questions against your long-term goals, your responsibilities, your lifelong purpose, mission, you may discover that certain people, experiences, events, they aren't worth it. The cons might outweigh the pros. In fact, I see this as your purpose being tied to that of weighing out the pros and cons and then being option orientated. You grow to become someone who can hold space for many people's points of view. Your life mission is usually linked to people, working closely with people, teamwork, collaborating, coordinating, exchanging, initiating important conversations, and possibly making business deals. Some of you might even grow to become counselors, mediators, artists, lawyers, negotiators, or members of authority within professional partnerships. And you might also grow to become wonderful conversationalists. Still, going back to the previous point, what if the pros outweigh the cons? Well, you'll attend that event. You'll happily greet that person of status. You'll join in on a call or a group scenario. If you see there is a purpose, if you see how you can gain something, you might go for it. And I also think that when you are aligned with your higher self, you are methodical, analytical, you're helpful, you're a problem solver, Capricorn, and an excellent one at that. You can create order out of chaos so well, similar to Virgo. You can also be correcting and detail orientated when you're aligned with your higher purpose. You want to deliver and achieve the best quality results. And I mean the best. And so you will make those business deals, you will make those calls, you will sign those contracts, and you may even delegate certain tasks to people who can perform them really well. However, this is where the punishing and overly demanding part of your personality comes in, because often in life, you're super hard on yourself, perhaps more so whenever you are younger. You have such high expectations and standards about yourself and even toward others. Now, I'm not saying that this is bad or negative, because I do think that this part of your personality helps you produce those excellent results that you're looking for, right? You have what it takes to make that vision come to life, Capricorn. And you do this by putting one foot in front of the other. You do this by being consistent, disciplined, dedicated. You don't just sit around waiting to achieve things in life. You get out there and you go for it. And you also don't rush things, okay? It's about slow and gradual building. Even consider the mountain goat, okay? The mountain goat, which is one of your symbols, Capricorn, that mountain goat climbs up that mountain one step at a time, very carefully. One slip and that goat could fall. And so for you, this is about being careful as you climb your own mountain of success. But these high expectations and these high standards of yours, well, they can also make you stern, rigid, cold, and quite gloomy at times as well. You might even struggle with feelings of imposter syndrome, feelings of doubt. You can think negatively, or you can assume the worst, or you may think that things are going to fail, as if things aren't going to work out for you. And the thing is, of course, is you could look at this through a realistic way, right? You can be realistic in your approach and in the ways in which you see things. But I think there's a fine line between what is realistic versus being overly pessimistic about a situation. And you can be fearful about the future here. Then again, some of you may be these workaholics who, well, you don't make much time for your loved ones. Then there are those of you who experience melancholy. Perhaps you think back to the past and you feel mournful, right? You'll experience guilt and shame and grief. Think about all of the things that you could have done but you didn't do. Now on that note, perhaps you grew up struggling in some way. I mean, there were many hardships, many obstacles to overcome, many emotional difficulties, which you were told to get over. Perhaps you lost someone, or your parents struggled with their responsibilities and their duties. You saw how much they suffered. Then there are those of you who had a particularly difficult relationship with your father. Perhaps he was absent, or he was ABUSIVE. He was perhaps even overworked and stressed. He carried the weight of the world on his shoulders, and you saw him trying to make it through each day. You could see how much he was struggling. Or this could have been where your grandparents, okay? So your grandparents may have behaved in these types of ways, or perhaps it was that you were very close to your grandparents. Then, of course, there are those of you who wanted to make your father proud. You wanted to succeed so he would recognize you, or you felt this pressure to be a somebody, okay? You felt this pressure from him to amount to something. Now, of course, I am not saying that you all had terrible fathers or families. In fact, I also think that many of you looked up to your father. I also think that many of you learned a great deal about responsibility and integrity and commitment due to your father's guidance. And I also think that many of you felt this calling, right? A push to do better and to make something of yourself because of his wisdom there, because of your father's guidance. And this leads me on to your descendant, which is Cancer. Cancer invites you to feel. And I mean, really feel. Cancer invites you to experience emotion in a way where you don't use logic or rationale. You allow an emotion to run through your body. You can regulate your emotions without trying to block them out or stuff them down. Now, at the same time, I understand that rationalizing how we feel can be a way of coping. It can also be useful within certain situations. Though coping, especially if you're in a public situation which doesn't support the emotion you're experiencing. But if you make this a regular pattern, you can limit yourself. For example, if you don't allow yourself to feel the emotions tied to a breakup or a separation, it doesn't mean those emotions just disappear. Emotions can actually become trapped in our bodies. So you could experience joint pain, muscle pain, for instance. You could feel very tense. Therefore, Cancer brings emotional support. Cancer invites you to care for your emotions and your feelings. Sure, this doesn't mean acting on them all the time, okay? But it's about experiencing them and processing them. Cancer gets you reflecting and comforting yourself, especially during times of difficulty, during times of hardship. Cancer gets you owning the parts of yourself which are warm, nurturing, receptive, and sentimental. Cancer says, you belong here. You are safe here. I've got you, because you can comfort yourself through this. And this is so interesting because you often look out at the world and you think people are so emotional and irrational. They don't know how to control themselves. And oh my goodness, they are so needy. I am dealing with babies, with children right now. People who are grown adults and they're acting like they're 3. And do not even get me started on their mood swings and how vague they can be. But Cancer encourages you to look in the mirror. Cancer asks, what are these people reflecting about my own emotions and mood fluctuations? Cancer shows you that it's okay to experience a full range of emotion, from anger to jealousy, from joy to surprise, from disgust to disappointment. They're all valid. And when you experience such emotions, they aren't good or bad, right or wrong. Keep in mind, you can have this very black and white way of thinking, Capricorn. But yes, your emotions aren't good or bad. It's what you think about them that make them good or bad. And I also think it's what you do with them. It's how you act on your emotions. Naturally, we can manage our emotions, but this is not the same as stuffing them down or trying to get rid of them. And I also understand that there is a ton of nuance to this. Still, Cancer invites you to show sensitivity toward your emotions and also toward other people's. And the thing about this as well is that you tend to attract people who teach you these lessons. You might not see it because a big part of the 7th house is unconscious, but often people you attract teach you about the importance of being nurturing, caring, and sensitive. You might even enter relationships in this way where you really seek to support your partners and your loved ones. You can be sensitive to their needs. Now, of course, I'm not saying that you need to forget the parts of you that are rational and reserved and more realistic and more practical. But what if you could own the parts of you that don't have to be so callous? See, you can also give off this impression that you're not sympathetic toward other people's experiences. You can give off this no nonsense demeanor. You can appear thick-skinned and quite serious as well at times. But I think your relationships tend to bring out the parts of you that can take things personally, the parts of you that fear neglect, fearing abandonment. And so I would say be careful when it comes to emotional manipulation within your relationships, Capricorn. Then again, perhaps it's that you experience highly emotionally manipulative partners because, well, if you're not so tapped into your own emotions, perhaps that leaves you quite open and vulnerable to other people, other people trying to manipulate you. So that's something to keep in mind. And then also I do think that there's a part of this where you can attract partners who are very snappy and sullen, and they can just take their bad temper out on you. Now, at the same time, perhaps you tend to attract lovers and close friends and business partners to an extent who are caring, okay? They're warm, they're nurturing, they're comforting. And when you become really close, these qualities seem to come out of you. You become supportive, you become loving and affectionate. You'll be open and receptive to the other person. However, relationships can also be smothering and clingy and too dependent. So this could be where your significant other behaves this way toward you or vice versa. Or this could be where you end up playing the parental role, right? Where you essentially parent your partner or you parent your friends. They could very well act like these big babies who do not know how to regulate their own emotions, and so you play the role of the parent. But Cancer also shows the parts of you that want to be mothered, babied, perhaps, supported and nurtured. Yeah, you might look to your relationships for that emotional support. You seek emotional security and the sense of belonging. Or perhaps you seek to be a part of a family unit or to raise a family with your significant other. And even if you don't have children with your significant other, there is this emotional attachment that you are seeking within your relationships. Feeling like you're at home in someone else's arms, if you will. Or perhaps some of you even attract partners who resemble your mother. These mothering figures or figures who create or even created a lot of safety and security within your life whenever you were younger. So, on that note, Capricorn, let's take you back to your childhood, okay? By exploring your 4th house / your IC. So you have Aries in the 4th, or you have that Aries IC. Did you grow up in a household where there was a ton of action? And by this I mean family members rushing around, okay, needing to get things done, pushing each other's buttons. Perhaps even you viewed your father as bossy, demanding, as someone who wanted things done now. Or it's that your father felt a lot of pressure to get things done, and so he never seemed to sit still, always working, always out of the house, or always pushing through things within the home. Then again, some of you might have experienced your father as very angry, Perhaps he did not know how to control his anger. He was very impatient. He was impulsive. He was reckless. He made some rather stupid decisions, in your opinion, decisions which resulted in chaos, chaotic financial decisions, resource decisions, or it's that he was super defensive. But you see, you might have seen through him. You could see that he was hiding something, hiding his vulnerabilities, hiding his weaknesses, possibly his pain. But then there are those of you who experienced a father who was violent, or he would throw things or just take his frustrations, his anger out on others within the home. On the other hand, perhaps there were times when he was a go-getter, okay? He was a leader. He was a person of strength. You saw him as a doer, as an achiever. Then there are those of you who grew up with a father who knew how to direct his energy very, very well. He could move mountains with his ambition, his drive, his willpower, his focus. Maybe you were inspired by him, inspired by his ability to be direct and to be energetic, by his ability to take risks, well thought out risks, and to go after his goals. Now, of course, the reason for why I am talking about the father so much in this video today, well, this is because Capricorn/Saturn rules the father figure in astrology. Naturally, this could have been your mother, okay? Or perhaps some of you grew up with a single parent, seeing as Aries is about singularity. And then again, there are those of you who might have been raised by your grandparents due to the absence of your parents. But whatever way things played out for you more personally, we're noticing a childhood where you had to straighten up quite quickly. You needed to be independent, you needed to be self-reliant from an early age. Then there are those of you who left the family home the second you could. It's like the minute you could, you got out of there. You wanted to be independent. Such independence may have even been instilled either directly or indirectly, so from your parents. Either, of course, in a beneficial way or in a challenging way. But again, of course, I'm not suggesting here that you all grew up with terrible families and parents and fathers. Because yes, there may be plenty of you who experienced parents who were very encouraging and motivating and, like I said, inspiring. Parents who taught you how to stand up for yourself, how to provide for yourself, how to face life's challenges head on. But could it be suggested here that all of this rushing around within the family home led to this type of disconnect? Okay, this disconnect from your emotions. Stay with me here, of course, okay? See, it could have been that emotions had to be dealt with quickly, okay? As quickly as possible. And this perhaps was because they were seen as a nuisance. It was like, why bother worrying about that? That's not a big deal. Ugh, just get over it. Move on from that. Move on. I already have. And so perhaps you learned that the best way to deal with your emotions was to rush through them or to do something with them, right? It was like, go for a run, you'll feel better after. Or have you tried working out? That might help. And yes, exercise can help us emotionally. Exercise can help us regulate our emotions. I mean, I have an Aries moon, and I would say that having an Aries moon is quite similar. And anytime I work out, I feel amazing. I feel great after. And I even would say that exercise is tied to my emotional needs, but exercising doesn't make an issue or a concern go away, especially if there are deeper things going on beneath the surface. And so I think a big thing for you, Capricorn, is learning to deal with your emotions in a way that actually validates how you're feeling. And at the same time, owning the parts of you which can be a leader when it comes to your emotional security. And it is interesting because Aries placements when younger can be very immature. Yes, they also are tied to our innocence. But as our Aries placements get older, we also mature and we learn how to manage any impulsive tendencies where we just want to rush through things. We learn to manage our reckless behavior. This is part of becoming an adult, right? Not to mention, It is you, Capricorn, who ages so gracefully. You often look younger when you're older. Still, your life path is largely about maturity and becoming wise. All right, so now we have explored your family life and how you approach your relationships. Let's explore your 8th house, and you have Leo in this house. Okay, so this is where we are noticing just how creative, entertaining, expressive, and loud you can be, especially emotionally. Oh yes, this is where we notice how intense you can be when it comes to being seen, being recognized, meaning you aren't just going to give for the sake of giving. You want to be recognized for your efforts, for your hard work, okay, for your dedication. You want to feel like you're appreciated, you're admired, you're loved, you're enjoyed. There is this hidden part of you that is ever so playful and joyous and childlike. And so by owning these Leo parts, you don't turn into this power freak who must control any and every situation. You also won't be so rigid or stiff, meaning this is about you embracing a little bit of play, okay? A little bit of fun. However, you can also go to extremes, especially whenever these parts of you are not integrated properly. Okay, so the way I see this is you being this really disciplined worker, this disciplined supporter. You have all of these responsibilities in your life, but as you give so much of your time and energy to this role, to this persona, you're often left starving for romance, play, fun, enjoyment. And then the moment that you get to experience some free time or play time, you can go overboard, Capricorn. You might not know how to control yourself. It's as if you're making up for all the things that you lost out on due to being the responsible and well-controlled one. Therefore, this is about, you guessed it, balance. This is about being able to own these Leo parts of yourself in a well-rounded way. So being able to make time for work and play, being able to focus on your responsibilities, but also being able to do something fun and childlike, something creative, taking part in a hobby of yours, having some time off. And at the same time, you transform when it comes to such matters. You evolve, you transform when it comes to things like enjoyment, entertainment, your creativity. You also grow in your confidence, which can help you when it comes to moments of self-doubt and punishment, the stuff I was talking about earlier. There are also themes of self-love and self-acceptance coming up here. And the thing about this too is you may have felt overlooked or overshadowed growing up. Perhaps someone quite close to you made you feel this way, or perhaps because you were often left starving for the love of your parents. How could they not see you? How could they not notice your gifts, your specialness? And so therefore, I think this is about you transforming when it comes to your specialness. Indeed, you transform when it comes to your ego. And I also think that there are those of you who reparent yourself, okay? So you learn valuable tools, strategies on how to support yourself, on how to really recognize your gifts and what you have to offer the world, especially creatively. Maybe children open you up to such realizations, or having a child transforms you. All right, so moving on to your 12th house, you have the sign of Sagittarius here. And so right off the bat, what we are noticing here is that some spiritual lessons you're coming to learn in this life are tied to your optimism, your inner faith, your philosophies. And it's also here where we see just how much you can see the bigger picture, how you can often visualize, dream, use wonderful foresight. You might be fascinated in learning about subjects related to psychology, mythology, symbolism, ancient history, culture, philosophy. You typically have a lot of knowledge to share with the world as well, but maybe many of you choose to keep this information to yourself. And so you do all of the reading, all the searching behind the scenes, and that's okay. But then there are those of you who share your wisdom. You want to spread it far and wide. And if or when you do, you'll do so in practical ways, in ways that make sense. You will also break down the information very well in ways that are polished and clean. And what others often do not see is just how hopeful and optimistic you can be. Then again, perhaps this is about you integrating more optimism, these parts of yourself which believe or keep the faith. And at the same time, I think you're this mix of both idealism and realism. I think you don't try to become too carried away. Okay, so yes, I think that you can possess an inner knowing or this inner faith, but until that thing is here now, okay, until you've got there, you've reached it, you try not to get too caught up in too much dreaming, too much fantasy. Sagittarius in this house brings levels of spirituality, imagination, idealism, but I think it also brings intelligence, fairness, and understanding. Then again, maybe these parts of yourself often battle it out. This part of you that can exaggerate and expand, but this other part of you that can see the honesty and the truth about a situation. And what we also notice here is that whilst you can take on responsibility and commitment in your life, there is this underlying part of you that fears responsibility. This part of you that doesn't want to take on responsibility and commitment. This part of you that wants to roam and be free, Capricorn. Yes, and you know what? This makes sense because if you grew up surrounded by duty after duty, you may grow up resenting such things. And if it was that you grew up having to be the responsible one whilst denying your childlike qualities and your childlike nature as a child, you might grow up thinking to yourself, I never got to be a child. I never got to grow up having fun like a child. I grew up having to live up to other people's expectations. And so what am I doing with my life? I should be enjoying myself. I should be having fun. I should be making time for the things that light me up. I want to be free. Essentially, I think Sagittarius in your 12th house teaches you so much about freedom, being adventurous, being spontaneous, and spreading your wings. You truly grow to become such childlike and fun-loving people who actually don't take yourselves super seriously. You grow to loosen up, and what an amazing sight to see you embracing these parts of your personality which you denied. Yes, Sagittarius here wants you to own these freedom-loving and open-minded parts of yourself, Capricorn. Though with that being said, do keep in mind balance, okay, going back to balance. Remember the overdoing it, because when you are overly indulgent, fanatical, or preachy, or when you fail to plan, or when you have this uncommitted mentality too much, well, such things are a part of your self-undoing. Still, this is about you owning the parts of yourself that explores, travels, and tries things outside of your comfort zone. Okay then, Cosmic Warriors, so that concludes my video talking all about the Capricorn psychology. Now, if you are a Capricorn Sun, Moon, or Rising, please let me know what you thought of the video down below. I hope you found it to be helpful, and if you are cross-watching for a Capricorn in your life, I really hope that I could shed some light on their inner world and you find it to be helpful too. But with all that being said, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. And of course, if you would like to see more videos from myself and you have not yet subscribed, then make sure that you click that subscribe button and also give this video a like if you did like it today. And I will be back with another video very, very soon.